Hello, welcome to another quick Marvel Crisis Protocol video where I'm going to run down a tournament I went to and the list that I used. So this time it was the WTC, the World Team Championships in Copenhagen, and I was part of Team England, 51% affiliated, using this X-Men list here. If you watched my previous video, you may notice it looks quite familiar. So from that list that I took to a singles event where I had free choice, I only made one change, given that I have to share models with my 4 colleagues, and that's to swap Okoye for Toad, because our Web Warrior player wanted Toad. So, as you can imagine, this feels like a fairly strong list in the teams format, given that it's not making a great deal of compromises in the format compared to in a singles event. So we're also using the same crises as last time: Madman, Spider Portals, Sword, Silencers, Scrolls, and Paranoia. And we are using Brace Sack, During the Atom, First Class, Tamima X-Men, and Xavier's Dream as normal, with Gotta Get Some Air, Survival, Instant Recovery, and Monkey Brain is Lizard Home. So a few changes at the end in the last few tactics cards compared to last time. The feeling was, or my feeling was, is that I'm never playing these 10th cards if they are like generic good cards. Like, for example, Recalibration Matrix is a really good one. I'm never going to bring in a fairly reasonable but slightly okay card to replace one of my front 5. It's much more likely that I'm going to pick something very specific and very niche in one situation. Like, for example, Monkey Brain here. If I get stuck on Researcher or Scoundrels or something, maybe I want that. I never played it in the end, but it felt like I was wasting the slot otherwise. And Survival is another card where I'm probably not going to play it very often, but if I end up playing Black Order, then it will actually be useful. Whereas, I mean, Recal can always just be Sacrifice or First Class, and that's not much of a difference. Overall, the plan is pretty much the same. We're playing Scenario. Storm, Logan, Nightcrawler, Beast, Domino, X-23 are the core X-Men. And then we've got some role players here. So Okoye is a 2-threat. That's her main job, just being a 2-threat. The crucial thing I feel in the way I like to play these X-Men is I need the ability to go 6 wide at 18. So both Spider Portals and Madman are 18 threats. So going 3, 3, 3, 3, all affiliated, with 1, 2 and 1, 4 potentially on the outside of non-affiliated, is something that I need to be able to do, or I feel, at all times, and so I need a 2 of some kind. I actually found Okoye relatively good in this shell, to be honest. Her only problems are her power generation, really. Her kit and her use function are actually really good, and compared to Toad, it's an interesting trade-off, actually, because Toad is a very, very good turn 1 model, and I like to use him to do a safe grab effectively and then save all of the other turn 1 resources for doing other cool stuff rather than using the Hop or Tamima X-Men for a safe grab. Okoye is more of a late game model, so if you get a lead or a VP lead, you can sort of retreat back to a bunker around Okoye and then use her to just soak up some damage and then have your other models not die. And that actually fits in really well with the game plan that we are playing. And found it really useful. It's also really great in combination with Dr. Voodoo because he can do all his funky things, steal all the VPs, be really annoying, and then bounce back. When he runs away, he can not run away to a corner like he might normally do and be out of the game. He can run away to next to Okoye and just be fairly safe for a bit, which is already really, really useful. Because Dynamo is, as always, the sort of one-stop shop anti-attrition plan if I get stuck on an E-shape like Demons or Gamma, or if we get even Fisk or intrusions. He's there, he's tanky, he makes the rest of my team a bit more durable, shocks people, disruption field. Just a general, you just put that one model in without any tactics card requirements and he gives you an opportunity to play against those kinds of teams. So it's a really low cost of entry into giving yourself a little bit of a shot in those games. And that's part of what I was looking for with this list, is like an all-comers list, something that our team could put into anybody and have a chance of winning the game. Obviously, teams format is slightly different to singles, and so in singles, every team needs to be, every list needs to be all comers effectively, or you just hope to get lucky and dodge. But in teams, you can obviously design dodges or ensure that if you have one bad matchup, you never play it. But you can't do that with all your teams. If every single one of you has got one or more bad matchups, then the pairing process is not going to fall out kindly for you. So it's also useful to have teams that can be flexible and play into most other things, and that's where this X-Men list came in. It's got a fairly even win rate, I feel, or chance of winning into most things. It doesn't feel super favoured before turn 0 against anything, but also doesn't feel super unfavoured. Obviously, there are crisis draws that can change that one way or the other, but it's not like certain games like Cabal, who have like super dominant matchups into certain things. Or Web Warriors is probably a better example. Voodoo does his stupid Voodoo things. We do hops turn 1. We can reach miles with him and get some early power on him to start getting steals off maybe, or set them up for round 2. So Voodoo with a hop goes really far on turn 1. He puts someone 2 in front of him, he hops forward, he can hit the midline with 2 attacks. But if someone doesn't put anybody on the midline, which is quite common, he can hop, move medium, and then hit someone on their home riot, for example, with his range 3 attack. So he's got a lot of range on turn 1. And you're not always looking to do anything fancy, just like, get a power from an attack, maybe get a skull as well, just fuel them up a little bit so you can do stuff. But obviously sometimes it works better than that. Lizard, we spoke about before, he's just a generic man who is tanky, and all my other guys are squishy. So it's nice to have a different kind of model in the list. I only played once in the end, but he was really good in that one specific situation. So you don't know what's going to come up. And sometimes just having a dude that stands there and doesn't die is really useful in a list full of otherwise people who like to die. So yeah, that's generally the list. I go into a little bit more depth in the previous video, so you can watch that if you want more information. So these were the games that we played. We played against Blaine, who was playing in the Alpha Flight team. He was playing the Web Warriors, as you can see. And we got on the Web Warriors skills, so Infinity Formula and Paranoia. But obviously Paranoia is great for me, especially like drawing it without Prio, because it means I can go last and do the thing. So the reason Paranoia is so good for X-Men is that we can Voodoo Hop and attack someone on the midline, and there are 2 things on the midline, so it's very unlikely that someone isn't going to be standing there, because most teams don't have 2 safe grabs. So if I prioritize grabbing the side ones, that means there's probably going to be a middle one for me to go and shoot at with Voodoo, which is what happened in this case. Got 3-1 up on the Paranoias round 1 because Voodoo managed to possess Black Widow and steal one, and then we just kind of rode out that thing for a little bit. In the end, the game's deciding factor was Logan the Wolverine managed to daze or KO in one case, Black Cat, Spectacular Spider-Man, and Wong in one go with a throw attack and a beam with all the rerolls and stuff attached, which is obviously really good. But I felt reasonably good about that because he was holding an extract. So I had moved him up the previous turn into the midst of all 3 of those models, which I feel is the kind of things you need to do against Web Warriors. You can't be hiding around at the back with a 4 threat. Even if they're holding an extract, they need to be going and doing stuff and dazing people and KOing people. Because if you leave Web Warriors to their business, eventually they will get you. But getting 2 of those would have been really, really nice. Getting all 3 obviously kind of ended the game on the spot there, which was great for me and less good for my opponent, but we managed to score that one out and it went all right. My team for that one was... we had Logan, Beast, X-23, Dr. Voodoo, and obviously Storm. That's a 17. It's a fairly strong team. We've got Voodoo and Logan, very strong. 4 threats into webs. X-23 obviously great into webs, and Beast is just like a really nice midpoint. I think you need at least one little bit of displacement just to keep the web boys honest, and he's useful just to hold an extract and run around a bit. And my opponent was using Miles Leadership with Black Cat, Spectacular Spider-Man, Ghost Spider, Wong, and Scarlet Spider. So that was a fun game, and my opponent was lovely, and that was great. So round 2, we played Jonas, playing Red Skull Cabal, I was lucky enough to win priority in this one, which is the only game of the 6 that I do priority, which obviously for X-Men is ideal. But it was great because not only did I win priority, but we also drew spider portals against what was primarily a Thanos Cabal list, which obviously that's perfect. My opponent pulled up a really good list, I thought, for the scenario, which I don't think Thanos would have been appropriate here at 18. I don't think that would have worked out for him because I was going to go super wide. So he played 6 wide Cabal. So I had Storm, Beast, Domino, X23, Okoye, and Dr. Voodoo, which was a squad that I played 3 times. Every time I got 18 on a pay to flip. And we were facing against Rescal 3, Master of the World, Baron Zemo, Pyro, Hood, Bullseye, and Mystique. And that was pretty cool. Going wide, trying to keep up with the scoring, not letting me run away with stuff on the pay to flips. Feels really good, I think. I think that's a great little way of doing things. Unfortunately, I got a really strong advantage on turn 1, where I think a little bit of a positional mishap on the Cabal side let me grab the hammer on my right flank, and on the left flank Voodoo could hop and double tap Mystique, who had unfortunately had to just stand on the midline grabbing her hammer. So she took some damage and coughed up her hammer to the possession. So I went through and up on hammers and managed to go 5-3 that round, and then just kept hold of that next round, 5-3 again, and then managed to just ride out the scoreline from there. That's, I guess, partly what you try and do with X-Men is just like trying to get a tiny incremental advantage early, and then just trying to rotate and keep hold of it, and make your opponent chase you down and do unfavourable things. Obviously, got some cool stuff here. Domino with a hammer is amazing, so she can just like stand on her back point, and if anybody tries to come and grab her, she shoots them real good. Then game 3, we had my only loss, so I ended up going 5-1, and this was my one loss. Pretty close, as you can see. It's 21-23. I think it went around 7, maybe 8. I can't remember. Against Diomlord, lovely Lorenzo from Italy, the captain of the eventual winning team, Italy Maestro. This was a really close game. I went back and forth. I didn't play great at turn 1. I left Okoye like a nanometer in range of Rocket, and then she got one shot, and then I probably overextended a little bit with Crimson Dynamo. I wasn't delighted with my play on turn 1, but we pulled it around really heavily, I think. The Guardians were putting out a lot of damage, but then they got a slight points lead and decided to pull back and bunker on that points lead, and then that gave me the opportunity to like become the beatdown effectively and start trying to get them and chase them down. And in the end, I was looking really strongly favoured towards the end of the game, and then we had a bit of a dice incident where Domino needed to do 1 damage with a full activation to Thanos to win the game, and then even if that failed, Logan needed to kill Rocket with 2 builders, including 4 rerolls, with 2 rerolls, and he didn't get him either. So either of those things happens, I win that game. In the end, just got it squeaked out, but it was great, really fun game. And it's really interesting and pressurized, and that's kind of the fun thing about going to WTC is this was the last game to finish. The round was 2-2 at that point, so it's actually really fun to play in those kind of like pressurized situations where everything's on the line, and I enjoyed it. So yeah, on to day 2, we're out the running now, but we're still playing for good positioning, hopefully. So round 4, we're playing against Pork Roll Protocol from America, and playing against Right Mad, or Ben, and he was bringing his Apocalypse list, and I had Storm again, 18 again, same 18 as before, Sword on Montesi. It was just a story of sword flips, really. I got a couple of turn 1 sword flips to get a little bit of an advantage on that, and then managed to just ride that home. And Ben's damage, particularly from Apocalypse, was very, very poor, and he wasn't able to push through, which obviously is, you need your 6th threat to deliver in that kind of game. The squads were... Oh, actually, let me go back to the Bruce game. The squads for the game against Diomlord were... I took Storm, Logan, Domino, Okoye, and Crimson Dynamo, and the Guardians took Star-Lord, Groot, Rocket, and Thanos with Reality and Space. Okay, and in this game against Apocalypse, I took Storm Beast, Domino X23, Alcoa, Dr. Voodoo, as before, and facing Apocalypse, War Colossus, no, Pestilence of Colossus, Famine Deadpool, War Beast, and Death Toad. Okay, game 5 was against Torbjorn from Sweden, Good Under Steve, the previous winners from last year, so at the time, the reigning world champions, and tried to get, Torbjorn had a very strong anti-attrition list, so we tried to, in pairings, leverage that and try and get both me and Connor, the webs player, into him, which we were lucky enough to do, so we felt this was a reasonable game. We ended up on Paranoia Scoundrels. I picked 16, and the teams were Storm, Beast, X23, Lizard, and Dr. Voodoo versus Sam, Captain America, King T'Challa, Iron Man, the 3-threat version, and Red Skull 2, the one with the grunts. So it's a really interesting team from Torbjorn. Made a lot of sense. He obviously realised that I was going to be the scoring team in this scenario, so he wanted to go taller, wanted to try and just beat me down and win in that way, which obviously was going to make a lot of sense. Unfortunately, I had a very nice storm hit to kill the Red Skull Grunts turn 1, which gave me the power to throw Captain America Sam straight forward towards my deployment zone, so my Dr. Voodoo could double tap him without moving, go 3-1 up on Paranoias again, and then I was just able to ride out the scoring from there on. Torbjorn had some bad luck with his hits. Didn't really get a huge amount of damage through, and that just let me run it out, basically. So I could have gone either way, but managed to hold on, and that was cool. And then finally, we played against the Montreal Shark Tank in round 6. Again, really fun, really nice to meet all these people and play against them, having spent a lot of time talking to them on the internet and watching them play their games. So I played against Nicholas Ratal. He was playing the Midnight Suns. In this game, we had the same 18 I mentioned, Storm, Beast, Domino, X23, Okoye, Voodoo, and we were facing against Blade, Iron Fist, Dr. Voodoo, Gwenom, and Black Panther, Chosen of Bast. We were 4-all on the scrolls, medium Madman scrolls this game. We were 4-all to start with on round 1, but then I managed to go 7-1 on both rounds 2 and 3. With Iron Fist having a sort of slightly safeguard with the scrolls, I was only able to get 1 attack on him with Voodoo round 1, but then after that we managed to get the scroll off him on round 2, and then just rotate around and just like with the extra body, so we had 1 more character, and then we got some pretty good attrition on round 2 as well. So Nicholas quite reasonably pushed into my team, realising that he was going to be the beatdown, having the one trying to get me. But obviously if you push into X-Men, and then we do have some models that can hurt you. So like Domino, X23, and even Storm with her boosted dice can do a lot of damage. With Voodoo, I prioritise attacking with him as well, so I didn't actually possess with Voodoo in this game. I just attacked and did a spender into Iron Fist rather than possessing him, because he only had 1 left at that point, I think, maybe 2. So I was able to, on round 2, get a lot of damage into Daze both Blade and Iron Fist, and I prioritised using all my cards early to keep all of my activations alive on round 2, so I could just get a heavy VP lead. So 7-1 in that round, which meant that Nicholas was chasing hard, I think, and had to put his models into danger, and then again, they got a bit chewed up. So yeah, it was all very good. The plan worked well there, and it was a really fun weekend. I also wanted to have a quick look at the X-Men lists in general. So these are the stats for all of the X-Men lists overall, the players and the crises and the cards. So you can see, Domino, Nightcrawler, Storm, the most popular. And that makes a lot of sense, because when I'm building a list, I usually start with those 3. Beast, again, he would also be in my core. These lists are slightly skewed by the fact that there is one weird, or not weird, but unusual dual list. So the Italians had a list that was technically listed as X-Men, but it had very few X-Men in it, and it was basically more of a Steve 1 list with a Professor X splash that he only played once in the end. So some of these things, like only being 17 beasts, I think was partly due to that. So he was in all of the actual X-Men, or he was in 17 of the actual X-Men lists. Kitty 17. I think this is a surprising one to me, particularly in reference to X23 here, only being 8. Looking at the models that I played over the weekend, I played Storm 6 times, obviously. Then I played Dr. Voodoo and X23 in 5 of the games. And then Beast, Domino, and Okoye in 4. And then Logan twice. Lizard and Crimson Animo once. And 0 games for Nightcrawler. He was the only model I didn't play. But that's not that he's bad. It's just that the games that he would have been good, or the threat values he would have been good in, didn't really turn up. So yeah, this is the one I was particularly interested in, statistically, was the X23 number. So I played her 5 or 6 games, and she was great, and I definitely rate her much higher than Shadowcat, who's perfectly fine, but she's just very okay at everything, where I think X23 is very, very, very good at the thing that she does, which is trying to chew through squishy models. And that's very good in lots of situations where, particularly against webs and things like that, where one of the key things when you're trying to beat webs is you need, like, tertiary forms of damage. So having 2 attacks into webs is fine, but obviously a lot of the time it's not enough. If you leave them on 1, then they're just going to run the table and run all over you, and you need little bits of extra damage somewhere just to get rid of those people who are left on 1. So that might be the throw from Beast or Storm, or in Alora's case it will be the frenzy attack. So if you daze like Toad or something and then leave someone else on 1, then you can do the extra attack, or have had the extra attack already. So yeah, it's really interesting. It's quite interesting that these models are here, including Shadowcat and Logan, are taken so often, and then it sort of drops off a little bit down to Iceman, who's taken as often as a splash, about as much as a splash as Voodoo and Pyro. And then it sort of tails off really quickly into all the splashes stuff. So obviously the X-Men community thinks there's a very clear core in the list, and that makes a lot of sense because it's the same one that I'm taking. So yeah, I guess we've got an agreement there. Secures, Madman, Portal, Sword. Really interested in that. I agree. That's what I like. That's what I think is currently best for us. But I've not seen a huge amount of discourse agreeing with that on the internet, but it turns out that people do, which is really cool to see. The third secure for X-Men has always been the most interesting one. So it's very much a case of what do you want to take? Do you want to take Infinity or Riots or Scoundrels or whatever? But yeah, I guess the community agrees that Sword is pretty good for us at the moment, and I tend to agree. The thing that's really good for us is that how aggressive we can be on it on round 1. We've got Beast who can attack both attack an opponent's sword, and then we've got a Nightcrawler who can quite often, if you use a few cards and the hop and stuff, can attack both of the opponents' back swords with the last activation of the game. So that's really, really strong. Last activation of the turn or the round. It's really, really strong, and if you can, flip 1, maybe even 2, go 3-1, 4-0 on round 1, that's just a huge advantage, especially when you're getting the push. So yeah, it's huge. Little bit less agreement, strong agreement, but slightly less clear cut on extracts. So the 3 that I took: Paranoia, Scrolls, and Mutant Senators. Most people seem to agree with that. Well, there are a few people who are taking Spiders as well, which I don't hate. Spiders is always good. The only problem with it is that it's not even, so you can go 3-2 down on it a bit more often, which is fine. It's got a lot of points, so you can try and steal one back, and that's all cool. A few cubes in there as well, which makes sense. They're not bad. The good thing against these 3 is that they're even, of course, and they're still good for what we're trying to do. So that is all cool. Cards, there's not a huge amount to say. Like, we're all taking the X-Men cards and Brace, and then a little bit less agreement on the second restricted card. So Sacrifice is the most popular, but there's some fallbacks as well. That makes sense. I might try that as well. Sack is good, but fallback is also good. So yeah, with these first 5 or 4 being so strong, and Survival just being so ubiquitous, there's not a huge amount of stuff going on here that's very interesting. It's just people taking occasional cool splashes with their cards maybe, and it's a bit of a shame, the situation with the TTCs at the moment, that there's not a lot of interesting stuff to do for a lot of affiliations. You're just taking the same 5 every game. So yeah, going back to the list, I'm pretty happy with it in the format. I'm going to be trying lots of different stuff with X-Men hopefully going forward, and some other lists as well, because I think we've played quite enough of this particular variety, so I'm going to try some different stuff, see how that goes. But yeah, we tend to end up coming back to this when it comes to competitive tournaments, because it seems to work. Lots of stuff's flexible. The thing I was actually most interested in or surprised by was how happy I still am with Logan and X23. So instinctively, when they rotated exceptional healing, my thought would be that they would be much less good and I might end up dropping them. Well, actually their performance has been fantastic, and they do what they do and they do it great. It turns out that they were good and they were in the list because they're good models, not just because they had access to a really good card. So Logan still has his ridiculous games where he kills everything, and the great thing about him is that 1 in 10 games his Tornado Claw goes stupid and you win the game on the back of it, but all the other 9 games he's still really good. So just like move and throw or something is still always really, really valuable. So he's sort of like it's got a very high floor and also a very high ceiling, which is a fantastic model to have. And it's all pretty good. Domino continues to be absolutely amazing and undervalued, I think, even though people think she's good. She's really, really good. And she does a lot of damage. Surprisingly tanky most of the time. Sometimes she just doesn't do well, but that's all models, isn't it? Yeah, I guess that's it. Turns out all these old models still good. Yeah, I guess Nightcrawler's the newest model in this list, but otherwise it's a very similar list that we've been playing before. But yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for watching, and if there's any questions, pop them in the comments and I'll try and answer. But there, cheers!